What's up everybody, Johan the Gym Monk here, and today we are going to discuss performance enhancing nutrients. Now these are specific nutrients or specific supplements that we can take that will give us a specific performance advantage or a specific performance benefit. In this series, I'm going to cover several nutrients that have a very large impact on our performance, health, and well-being. This will be everything from cognitive to physical to even emotional stability that can be created or supplemented or improved through one of these nutrients. The first nutrient I'm going to discuss is creatine, and the most common form of that is creatine monohydrate. There doesn't really seem to be much difference between the various forms, so I would suggest sticking with the oldest one and the most researched one, which is creatine monohydrate, and it's usually the cheapest as well. And if you can save costs, you always should. The first performance enhancing nutrient is creatine monohydrate. Now, creatine is a protein that the body can make on its own. However, we'll get into a little bit later why you might not want your body to be producing too much of its own creatine. But creatine is used in the energy cycle. It's used in nerves as well as muscle tissue. It's a part of the energy cycle of the mitochondria and is an important basic nutrient that the body uses for energy turnover. Now, why would you want to supplement with creatine, or who would benefit from supplementing creatine? Creatine is primarily found in red meats, at least in its largest concentrations. And if you're eating a large amount of red meat every single day as an athlete or some kind of either performance-oriented individual, and you are eating enough creatine, supplementing it with it may not actually be effective. So if you're already eating enough red meat, and that means approximately 2 or more pounds per day, a kilogram or more of red meat, then you probably don't need to supplement with it, but very few people eat that much red meat. And for everybody else, there could be a benefit. What happens when you supplement with creatine? Well, what happens is that your body stores it, as it does many nutrients, and it will reach a certain quote-unquote saturation point where there is more than enough creatine to fulfill all of the physiological functions that you have, energy turnover, muscle firing, etc. At that point, the body will downregulate its own production of creatine. Sensing that there is now more than enough, your body will stop producing creatine. Part of the process to create creatine or synthesize creatine in the body involves a methylation group. So a methylation group is required to bind the amino acids together and create that specific structure that turns those basic building blocks into creatine. Methylation groups have multiple functions in the body. It is a raw material, but it's a very important one. And methylation groups are very much responsible for detoxification pathways. So if either for environmental or genetic reasons, your detoxification pathways are particularly taxed or they are lacking in methylation groups to complete their processes, then supplementing with creatine could be beneficial and very much performance boosting for you. Now, the reason for that is when you no longer produce your own creatine, the body can now reallocate the methylation groups that were going towards the production of creatine into the detoxification pathway. So if you think about it as you have a pool of resources in the body, the methylation groups get scooped out of to make creatine as well as to detoxify your body. So if there's a lack of methylation groups and you need more of them, one way to increase the number is to simply supplement with about 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day. And you will actually then prevent the excess scooping out of the methylation group pool that you have for each and every day. And you can instead dedicate more of that to the detoxification pathway. As well as there are certain genetic brain conditions where the amount of creatine and other such energy transporting molecules are a little bit lower. And creatine can be used to kind of prevent some of these brain-related aging conditions actually. And there may be some benefits in the elderly actually taking creatine to improve cognitive and mental function as well. Personally, creatine is one of my favorite nutrients to use. It's one of the only supplements that I actually take because I notice a tremendous improvement in my general sense of well-being, my cognition, my energy levels. It's as though there is just more to go around. And I believe that I may be somebody who's predisposed maybe to less methylation groups or has a poor detoxification system for some reason, as I do have a lot of food sensitivities. But so that being said, if you have food sensitivities, allergies, an autoimmune condition, you could experiment with some creatine and see if that doesn't give you relief. For me personally, it actually does seem to benefit my autoimmune condition in that it's less reactive. I tend to get less reactions when I'm taking creatine as to when I'm not. And I have less reactions to food and less severe reactions to foods that I'm not supposed to eat. Citrus, for example. So creatine monohydrate might be a little hidden trick that you could use to kind of help offset some of the toxicity, some of the methylation burden that the body has, as well as it can give you some sports and otherwise cognitive performance advantages. So, to summarize, creatine benefits both the brain, potentially the detoxification pathways if they're overburdened, and benefits obviously the muscle cells and performance in exercise. But there's a lot more reasons just than exercise to take creatine, and it might be something if you are, struggling with energy production, struggling with toxicity, something that you could experiment with. It's usually quite cheap. You can usually find sources online. Just buy a pure creatine monohydrate, unflavored product, and you'll get the best value for money, and it will cost you very, very little. And it is a very, very effective supplement that for some can make a very big difference. I hope that review helped. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you soon.